Hi guys, welcome back to the Jacuzzi Girls Show.
My name is Janya.
I'm Marcella and we are your hosts.
So for today's episode, we wanted to talk about relationships and dating.
Valentine's. I
Yeah,
mean, this is hopefully going to come out on Valentine's, so happy Valentine's Day, guys.
yeah. Happy Valentine's Day. We wanted to make this, yeah, since it's Valentine's Day, we wanted to make this the theme of this episode about relationships, advice that we would give to our younger selves, our best dates and our worst date stories, and what we think about the box theory. If you guys do not know what that is, we will explain soon.
You're in for a treat. I'm really excited for this episode. Yeah, this is going to be good and really funny. Also, I don't know if anyone can see, but I have heart-shaped earrings in honor of Valentine's. Anyways, Jania, how do you feel about the holiday?
And I also have a heart. Ooh.
Okay, okay.
How do I feel about the holiday? I feel I don't think it's that celebrated in Kazakhstan as it might be, let's say, in the States or abroad. I think that 8th of March, let's say, has more of an impact on my happiness that day than
Okay,
Valentine's Day.
let's just say synonymous 8th of March, Valentine's, whatever. You know, these holidays that are geared about women, whatever. How do you feel about them as someone
I
who
feel good. I feel good. Like I feel good. The reason why we are. I guess I feel good about any holiday where a girl could get pampered or treated well, if you're when you're in a relationship. When I was single, I think I was very neutral about them, and I would go out during those days. And you know, when you would go out during Valentine's Day, there was like a air of desperation in the air. You know, like when if you're like at a club or somewhere and you're like looking at
Yeah.
other single people, you're like understanding that that's what you feel in the air. Even though I would just go out simply because I personally like any holiday. What about you?
I
How do you?
think I think maybe when you go out and even though you're like, oh, whatever, it's just any day, but I think because there's like that desperate group think, you get influenced and you just feel it as well. You're like, oh God. Um, I so I what I was gonna ask you is, do you expect something on this day? Do you just to preface, Jania is in a relationship and she has a boyfriend of 2, 3 years?
2.5. Yeah.
2.5. So do you like expect things or do you forget about it and he just does things for you on these types of holidays?
You know, my rule of thumb is usually I like to give flowers once a month, and we usually
Okay.
always have date nights as is. Um, but I think, I think now that we're older, maybe we've been dating for a while as well. I, ex- as I said, I expect something for New Year's. Let's say I expect something for 8th of March, but I don't expect much from February 14th, other than maybe like a date night us two.
Yeah, no. So okay, like let's say 8th of March for you, but you expect something, right?
Yeah,
And or you
for
forget
8th
about
of
it.
March, I actually want a present and I want flowers and I want
Okay.
more attention. For Valentine's Day, it's nice to get. I guess that's a lie. I do also want flowers on Valentine's Day, and it would be nice to get like chocolates or chocolate covered strawberries because I like them. But and a date night,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think I'm celebrating it more because I like any holiday that's something that's related to anything positive, whether that's love, happiness, and that's why I would. But in terms of like, I'm not too strict about it. Let's say if nothing happens, or if it's, then I'd be like, okay, it's fine, because I know that
Yeah.
either way, I will get flowers in due time or whatever I need in due time as well.
Yeah. No, I agree. That makes sense.
What about you? Do you want to talk about your relationship status?
Sure. So I am single. I'm dating, but I think for the most part I'm single.
Yeah.
So I think for me, the holiday, I agree with you. I think I just kind of grew out of it. Because I actually had a friend who texted me and sent me like this party and she's like, "Do you want to go?" And I was like, "I would love to get dinner with you, but I don't want to go to this party." It just sounds not that it sounds like desperate, but it just sounds like desperate. Like I think it's what you said like why do we have to go out on a random like night and like be like, woo, because it was also like titled like single Valentine's party or something. And I was like, why do we have to like go out and like party and like do like, you know what I'm saying? I was like, why can't we just do something nice? It's just any other day. And I think I agree with you. It doesn't matter what day it is. I think if I, with partners, boyfriends, dates, whatever, I expect to be treated well and romance regardless of the day or holiday. And if it's a holiday, then I just expect extra.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the same thesis. But why wouldn't you go to that party? It's Valentine's. You have to join. That's what I'm saying. Like why? But my thing is this. Let's say it's not a bad holiday. There's just like a.
No, not at all.
So why not celebrate love for other people? Like the holiday is basically about love, right?
No, I know, but I think like that's what I'm saying. Like I'd love to do something nice, like go to dinner, something chill, but I don't want to go to this rave where like it's like we are single gals and like it just sounds like really intense and I was like, why do we have to do this? If we would never ever do this in any other circumstances, why do we have to do this on February 14th? Like this sounds crazy.
Yeah, fair.
And also it was like expensive. It was just like the whole thing. I was like, this literally sounds not fun. And I don't want to do something not fun just for the sake of doing something on this day. I'd rather do something I want to do.
I mean, I guess so. But the thing is that it is, yeah, fair. Like, I think it's just the way you approach it. Like, I guess when you're single, it's just any other day. When you're in a relationship,
Yeah.
it might be something special that you want to celebrate. But I also think, why not celebrate it just because?
Yeah, so I was like, let's do something nice. Let's do something whatever. But like,
Let's
I don't
not
want
go
to go
out?
to this weird, like, I don't want to like, basically, this is what I'm saying. I don't want to overcompensate by doing something that I would never do in my real life and I don't want to do.
Okay, fair. Fair.
Like I don't want to be like we are gonna have the best time tonight and
Like, we have to black
go to
out.
a rave. Yeah, like I don't want to do that. That sounds like really not fun anymore.
Yeah, fair. I can see that. So,
Um,
now that we dived into how we feel about Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I guess we both know how we're celebrating ours.
if you're going to a rave, sorry,
You won't see Acela there. Acela will
you
be
won't.
home.
Imagine if you
with
do.
her-
Imagine if you do. That'd be so funny.
No, if anybody does, you have to take a video of her incognito and send it to me because I will post it on the podcast
Yeah, literally.
for proof of the irony.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to actually dive into a topic, and to introduce the topic, we want to give a scenario. So, how about I ask you, Cecile, what you would do in this situation, and then we can dive into this. Let's say you went on a date. The date was amazing. You think you had amazing chemistry. You like him physically, and he's really good on paper. And then you also had a great date, and you were like, "Wow, that was amazing, insane." This is an interesting question because would you be younger? Maybe your answer would be different. But now that we're
Wait,
older,
but you didn't finish the scenario, dude.
wait, because I feel like I want to preface this more. Okay, so basically,
No,
you went
no,
on
finish
you went
the
on an amazing
scenario.
date. Okay, fine. You went on an amazing date. You had crazy chemistry, but then the next day you're waiting for a response from him to text you, and you're waiting the entire day. You're checking your phone nervously, and he doesn't text you. And then a few days pass, and he still hasn't texted you. And you're confused because at the end of the date, he told you, let's do this again sometime. And you were looking forward to it. You thought it was the start of something interesting and fun. What do you do in that scenario? Do you consider texting him, being like, hey, is everything all right? Or do you hold a funeral?
Well, Johnny, I think it's a very common scenario. I also think maybe he doesn't reach out, but I think sometimes, what happens is he doesn't reach out as fervently as you want him to, and he doesn't make plans to see you again. And
Yeah.
it's weird because you had like the best date ever and you had so much fun. So I guess this is the perfect segue into what I hope many people know as the box theory, because it is absolutely true. I have lived it. You have lived it. I think women all over the world have lived it. Maybe there are some exceptions in this world, like maybe, but I have not met one actually. And I think you are probably the general rule rather than the exception. So take it from us. This is true. And if this happens to you, or just whatever situation you ever have with a guy, always remember the box theory. Basically, I don't know. Did Tinks coin this actually, or was it just something she uses?
I think she made it up. Like I said, I
Okay.
think yes, she's the creator of it.
Do you want to explain the theory, or should I?
You can explain it.
So basically, Tinks is an influencer. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. And she has this theory. It's called the box theory, that basically when you meet a guy, within the first 10 seconds, he places you into one of three boxes. Either he wants to date you, he wants to sleep with you, or he wants nothing to do with you. And no matter what you do, honestly, you can't move boxes. You are stuck in that box. And I know it sounds harsh, unfair, but the sooner you realize this, it will make your life easier, and all the scenarios and what weird, ghosting stories and everything in your life will just make sense, because it gives you a framework and it explains a lot of guys' behavior.
Yeah,
And
basically the box theory is that if a guy wants to date you, he will date you no matter what. And if a guy wants to just sleep with you or kiss you, he will do just that and then leave you at that. Because there's three boxes. It's the hookup box, the dating box, and nothing to do with your box. And what's interesting is that I actually asked multiple guys if it's true or not.
yeah,
Because I was interested. I'm like, do you actually, like, as the first time you meet a girl, do you already
yeah,
put her in a box? Like, oh, I want to date her, or I want nothing to do with her, or I want to sleep with her. And every single guy was like, "Oh, that is so true." As soon as like
yeah,
he's like, usually you process it within the first few seconds. Even like you meet a
yeah,
girl and you're like, okay, you know what, where you see her in your life, and that's that.
yeah.
So the point of that scenario, why we introduced that, is growing up and being in our late 20s, we've had our fair share of experiences. None of us are that unique that none of us. Well, I'm sure all of us have experienced something of the sort where you're waiting for a guy to text you and he never does. But part of growing up is realizing that it's not you, it's them, and that you would rather just be with a guy who will be committed to you 1,000%, rather than somebody who's wishy-washy. So you hold a funeral for them and leave it at that. I feel like
Basically,
it's also,
he didn't like you enough. Sorry,
yeah.
he didn't like you enough to date.
Also, I feel it is very rare for a girl to switch boxes, but it is possible. But what I usually find is, let's say when a girl goes from the hookup box to a situationship, to a relationship, they usually
I don't
end
think
up
you can
breaking up.
switch boxes.
You don't think? Oh, but sometimes people do. Sometimes people are like friends, or like friends with benefits, and then they become a relationship.
But that means that he always thought he could date you deep down or subconsciously.
My point is that I think that usually those relationships never turn out well. I think they end up breaking up either way, or they're toxic. Just my hot take on that.
Yeah. So in my experience, I have been, this makes me sound so crazy, but I have been in situations where I have acted like a complete psychopath, but the guy liked me and he still pursued me. And then I have had situations where I was like fun, charming, normal, and like flirted a bit, but like nothing, nothing ever happened. And so the point of that is, if a guy really likes you, he likes you. There's really little you can do to change his mind, unless, I mean, I don't know, you murder his dog. Please, like, don't do that. But for the most part, whether it works out or not,
As long as you do not commit murder, you should be in the clear.
Yeah, and like whether your relationship survives or not is a different question. Like that's, depends on other things. But if he wants to date you, he will date you. And if he doesn't want to date you, there's nothing you can do. Sorry, he just doesn't like you enough. Maybe he likes you, you know what I'm saying? But not enough to like commit to you, and because that's a lot.
Yeah, and I think that it's usually, I think girls can make themselves like somebody, but guys don't. Like either they like you right away or they're like no. Versus a girl
Yeah,
can actually be swayed, being like, actually, I don't think he's that bad, and then you like start developing feelings later on. That could happen
yeah.
to a girl.
Yeah, but I do think it's interesting, right? Because like when you talk about it objectively, it makes so much sense. But when you're going through it and you have this insane chemistry with someone and an insane date, and then you just nothing ever happens. It is, I guess, jarring because when you experience it, you're like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah, fair, fair. And I think it's an ego hit, when that happens, and you're like, ouch. But then when you realize that it's not a you thing, it's a them thing, and rejection is redirection, if that's what it is, or just like something not working out, it's always for the best.
Well, I'm also excited to read the book that we're going to read, Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus, because I do think I want to see what it says. Because, in my opinion, I think women think in a very gray type of way, whereas men think black and white. And I think when women remember that, it makes a lot of things easier. What I mean by that is, sometimes a girl can go out with someone and she might not even like him that much, but she will still give him a chance because she's like, oh, maybe I can grow to like him.
Yeah.
It's not immediate. It's not immediate usually. It's very much like she's deliberating. She's like, he has potential, like all these things. Whereas a guy will be like, yep, nope, maybe. Like it's very like, it's very black and white usually.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like, oh, this girl, I don't really like her, but she has potential, so I'm gonna go out with her. Like I don't think any guy ever thinks that way, but girls do, and that's where I think. I mean, it's normal that we do that. We think differently, but I think if a guy basically really does not give a fuck about you, it's probably not because he's deliberating about you. It's probably because he just doesn't really want to be with you.
Yeah, so do not waste your time trying to persuade him or like even wasting your
Yeah.
thoughts on him.
Yeah. And even if he strings you along and like sometimes texts you,
He's just bored.
he still doesn't want to date you. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just bored.
Okay,
Okay.
let's dive into dating advice that we would give to our 20-year-old selves. I wrote down
Okay.
3. I don't know how many you have, but should I begin?
Yes, please.
And then you can pitch in if you agree with my dating advice or if you disagree or what your stance is. But I have a feeling that because there's only 3 pieces of advice, so they're general and take them as facts.
Okay.
So I think now rule number 1, date a guy who loves you more than you love him. It does not mean that you do not love the guy. You still love him a lot and you're maybe even obsessed with him, same way he's obsessed
Yeah.
with you. But the guy has to like you a bit more because we as women, we need that extra effort from the male species. If they're not like you as much as you like them, or if you love them more than they love you, men feel that, A. B, men can actually, what I realized with age too, by the way, men can change. Women have a hard time changing. I don't know what it is about us, but I think we're more stubborn and set
Oh,
in our ways.
interesting.
I think that men can actually be sculpted into what you need the man to be. A woman, it's really hard to sculpt her into what you want her to be unless you like break her down as a human being, which we do not advise to do. But let's say if a guy meets the right girl, you will see him glow up financially, career-wise, clothes-wise, everything. A girl usually does not really get impacted that much by her guy, other than the fact that he might just support her more or put her down. But in terms of other facets, she's usually more set in her ways. Anyways, first point, date a guy who loves you more than you love him. You will not regret that, considering that in my personal experience, can be crazy. And I need that extra reassurance that he provides for me by loving me more and being able to like set his ego aside, and I try to set mine as well.
Yeah.
So that's number 1. Dating advice number 2: date someone who is nice and caring. Please look out for those traits when you just meet somebody. I think a lot of guys can be good on paper, they can be ambitious, they can be doing things, but first and foremost, they should be a nice human being and they should be a caring human being. Observe how he treats those around him. Is he action and service oriented? Does he help people around him when you're next to him? And I think that will give you insight into how he will be in the relationship, because we as women naturally do a lot of things around the house, in our lives. We always think of everything, and it's very important to have a man who can make your life easier. And usually you can see that when you meet him, and if he is kind and wanting to help others. And I feel like those 2 characteristics, they usually kind of show up in maybe the first 5 minutes of when you meet somebody.
Yeah.
And rule number 3, I guess this is the box theory, but the right guy will attach himself to you and heal your inner trauma and your childhood or whatever like issues you have, he will help you heal them. He will not think that you're insane or this and that. He'll give you assurance and that it's okay to be yourself, and your psyche is gonna calm down around him rather than be anxious. So I think that when you're with the wrong guy, you will usually have a feeling of anxiety or uncertainty, unpredictability. But when you're with a good, stable man who is secure emotionally, he will provide you that space for you to heal yourself and come
Yeah.
out a more healed version of yourself rather than being anxious that he's not texting you, that he's not showing up for you, he's not committed to you, and so forth. So if you're in the beginning and you see a guy who, let's say, doesn't really text you that often, as we talked before, or he doesn't, you want to maybe show him that you care and you want to do that extra step. Do not do that extra step until he does it first, because that will show you what he is like as a person. Or let's say, usually you can see how he reacts. Let's say if you do something nice to him and he returns the favor 10 times back, then that could tell you a bit about his character. But in general, I would just advise against being with somebody who's not as attached to you. Like, he really, like, for a healthy, good relationship, I really think the guy needs to be like a leech. Like, he needs to be obsessed with you. Like, for you to be able to fully come into your feminine and relax, you need to feel that kind of security. That's just my opinion, and that's my three dating advices for my 20-year-old self who literally knew nothing basically. And also, if a guy is nice and he's willing to take care of you, why don't you try dating him? Do not go for people who are emotionally unavailable, because that just signals that A, you're emotionally unavailable yourself, B, you're about to experience a hella abusive relationship. And why would you go through that, you know?
Wow, that was quite some advice, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if your 20-year-old self would have taken it or understood it, but it's good.
Yeah.
My three pieces of advice, I'm gonna keep it concise and
Yeah.
brief, just because I think, yeah, basically, I just want people to understand is, if you're 20, is date a lot. I'm not saying sleep around, but I'm saying date a lot, get out there, experience. I promise it's gonna help you in the long term, because you're just gonna know what you like, what you don't like, and you're not gonna be as prone to making mistakes. You're collecting data, right? So the more data you have, the more accurate results you're gonna have. Again, not saying sleep around. That's not what I'm saying. Just, date different people, see what you like, do research. Number two, I would say, and this is something I think you said as well, is look at how he treats other people around him. Because the first 6 months, the guy's going to be, well, hopefully, he's going to be on really good behavior with you. He will treat you really well. But I think you need to watch you need to watch how he treats other people, because that is going to tell you so much about his character. And you can pick up on certain things that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise, because when he's with you, he's like perfect and charming and, yeah, on his best behavior. So pay attention, because that is so important. Janya, like as Janya said, he needs to be kind, he needs to be caring, he needs to be a good person. And number three, and I think this one is kind of hard, but maybe don't, just go for the superficial things. Or if you do, that's fine. Also, if you're doing it for research, it's fine. But if you're dating someone really long term, then think about if you would want to be friends with him. Like, genuinely, would you be friends with a guy if you weren't dating? Because if you're just really into him or what he represents or whatever, the superficial stuff, but you don't like him as a person and your values don't align, you're just incompatible, that's a huge red flag. So yeah, basically think, would I be friends with this guy if we weren't dating? If you would, great. If you wouldn't, rethink that. And another advice I would say, and this one actually was hard, but you taught me that, Janya, and I actually apply it even now, more so than when I was younger, is I think when you're dating, maybe don't tell everybody what's happening in your personal life, because I think everyone is going to have an opinion. People are really going to, bias you and give you their opinion. And I think it's better, especially if it's not serious or whatever, you don't have to tell your friends everything that's going on and, give them all the details, because part of the process is making up your own mind.
Okay. I agree with your dating advice as well. I think they're similar in a way to mine, but I think that's normal. That's to be expected as well because we both had different dating experiences by the way, but
Yeah.
we kind of came to similar conclusions as we age
Yeah.
because we just take less shit at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
but I appreciated that advice, Janya. I remember you told me that once, and now I really practice it. I'm like, I don't really tell people too much about my personal life because I think it's just better that way.
I I always did that, and I kept my private life private, but I think I did it as a self-preservation thing more than it was.
Oh,
It was not even about, by the way, it was not even about. I would tell some of my friends, by the way. I would always maybe tell one or two friends who are my best friends, or I would tell my sister, and I would keep it at that. But I would not tell everybody. You see, like, and also you have to choose who to tell, right? Because you still want to share, let's say, like what's happening in your life, especially if you're excited. But let's say if you know that if you tell this one person, they're gonna tell their entire friend group after. I'd rather
or they're
not
gonna keep
say it.
asking you about it forever.
Yeah, I'd rather not say it until I'm more like settled in my relationship. Then I'll be like, yeah, by the way, we're dating now. But
Exactly.
if it's a person who you know that you really trust them, then it's okay to share.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Should we wrap up by saying, since it's Valentine's, best and worst date stories?
yeah, let's do it. We don't have much time left, but do you want to start, Athela? I feel like yours will be just better. Mine are all average. Like they're good and they're bad at the same time. But I can talk about one, I guess. Yeah.
Well, in general, I think when you and I spoke about this, the conclusion was if you've had an amazing date with someone, it doesn't mean that they're the one, to be honest. Because so the most recent one that I can remember is I told you this. I went out with this guy like maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. A really nice guy. We went out. I was so surprised because I didn't expect this, but we had the best time. Literally stayed at the date for like hours and hours and hours. Got super drunk on wine. Had like the best time. Like ended up getting food. I genuinely enjoyed his company a lot. And like yeah, it was just a great date. And then the next day, I remember waking up and I felt so great, like so happy after the date. But I was like, I don't think I'm ever gonna see him again. I don't know. It was just one of those things where, first of all, I think I was newly single, so I was like very much enjoying it. And second of all, I had a great date, but I just wasn't. I don't know why. I really knew that I wasn't interested in seeing him again because I think it was like a one-time fun thing. Nothing happened. I just want to preface this,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, it was like the first newly single. It was my first great date, and it just reminded me how fun being single is. So that's why I said it was like the best date ever. And the guy was really nice, honestly, like really funny, really nice. I just wasn't interested in anything serious, and I could tell that he's the type of guy that is that type of guy. So I was really honest with him, and I said, hey, listen, like I had such a nice time last night, thank you so much like for the date, but I just want to preface, like, I don't know if we should see each other again, just because I am not looking for anything, and yeah, we can stay friends.
But that's a best date, right? We're talking about best date and worst dates.
Yeah, like I
Okay,
just
okay,
had so
yeah,
much
yeah,
fun on that
yeah,
date.
yeah.
And basically, I think I did the right thing. I told him, like, I don't see this progressing into a relationship or anything, but I would love to stay friends, and I had the best time with you. He said he understood. He did end up texting me for, like, every weekend for the next 6 months. So I don't know if he got the message, but I feel like my conscience is clear. I told him how I felt,
Okay.
and I thanked him. And he had a great time, too. Like, we were, like, joking so much. It was so much fun. My worst date is, actually, I remember this, in America. I went out with this awful, snobby, condescending, pseudo-intellectual guy, and he was like an aerospace engineer or something, and he was just not pleasant. He was not nice. And I remember leaving the date after like 30 minutes. I was like, what a rude guy. And I just left, and I thought I'd never see him again. But then I accidentally ended up mixing up his number with my friend's number who was visiting town. And so I basically thought I was meeting up with her, and I was like texting her how much I was looking forward to seeing her, how excited I was, like in caps lock. And when I enter the bar, I realize it's this guy and not my friend. and I think my mouth just like I was just my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my goodness, and I realized because their numbers were so similar. But he was like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like, you were so into me. Like, I didn't know if you enjoyed the date, but it's so glad, like, I was so glad to get your text. And I felt so awkward and I literally didn't even know how to get out of there. So I was like, oh, I like can't stay long. And it was just super awkward because, as I said, he just wasn't a very pleasant person. And I kind of had to be there for like at least 30 minutes because I basically made it seem like I was so dying to see him. And so then I basically said, okay, like, I'm really sorry. I have to go now. Yeah. So that was horrible.
Okay, we to wrap up, we don't have much time left. I can, I guess, dive into mine, but make it more concise. The reason why we say we don't have much time is because we started filming late, and as you know, in any podcast studios, you only have a allocated amount of
Well,
time.
don't waste time explaining this.
Yeah,
Just
but
go for it.
I mean, yeah, I guess it doesn't matter if you guys know about that or not. Anyways, I think I'm not gonna mention any dates with my current boyfriend because I think they were all good in their own ways. Because we also had like 1,000 date nights that
Yeah.
were amazing. But let's say before I met my boyfriend, one of the best days that I had, I think it was really well planned out. We went to an NBA game, and then afterwards we went to a really nice restaurant, and it was in New York, in Soho. And then we went to the Rose Bar, and there was a jazz band playing. And overall, it was a very nice date, even though I didn't really have feelings for him. But he did like me a lot, but he was just a bit like it was not the vibe. There was no spark. And my worst date, oh, like I met this guy. It was in Singapore, and he was a model. I think I met him on a dating app, and we went to this bar. But the things he was saying were just insane and so weird. I think he was very nervous, even though he was a model. He was tall. He seemed confident. I think he even studied in Oxford, in the UK, and then he moved back to Singapore. But those things he was saying was just so insane that I was like, listen, like I need to go home. Like I don't know. Like he'd be like, oh, I love massaging people for free in Oxford. Like just my classmates, I would
What?
massage them. Or he would just say the craziest things, and I think that was my worst date. And I left being like, why did I even come? And then he actually kept texting me after that, but I was like, Thank you."
Oh my goodness. All
Yeah,
right. Well, there you go.
yeah.
That was our Valentine's episode. Maybe the point of this was you can have the best date with someone, but you can also not be into them and like nothing can come out of it. Because I also just never felt a spark with the guy that I went out with. He was super nice, but just, yeah, I was like, don't really want to do this again.
Yeah, same thing here. He was super nice, really good on paper. We talked normally, but there was just no spark of that sort.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, happy Valentine's.
Happy Valentine's. Thank you so much for tuning into our episode. And uh, don't forget to tune into our book club that will happen probably in the next week or so. We will film another episode. So till then, bye
Thank you.
everyone.